Have you ever noticed how some decisions feel confusing while you're making them but painfully obvious after they ruin something? That's the strange thing about regret. After everything falls apart, your brain suddenly becomes very intelligent. Suddenly you can see every red flag clearly, every weird feeling you ignored, every sign that something was off from the beginning. And you sit there thinking, how did I not see this earlier? But the truth is, most people are not blind. They just become emotionally attached to certain outcomes, and once that happens, clarity quietly disappears. That's why people can easily see bad decisions in other people's life while struggling to notice the same pattern in their own. You can watch someone ignore obvious signs, repeat the same mistake again and again, ruin their peace over one person, one choice, one habit, and think, why are they doing this to themselves? And then one day you catch yourself doing almost the exact same thing. And the scary part is, bad decisions usually don't feel dangerous in the moment. That's why they happen. Nobody knowingly walks into regret. Most people walk into something that feels emotionally convincing at that time. A distraction feels harmless, a delay feels temporary, a toxic situation feels manageable, a wrong choice feels justifies because your brain is busy protecting what you want to feel, not what you need to see. And once emotion enter the picture, your mind slowly stop asking clear questions. Instead of thinking properly, you start defending the decisions before even it's made. That's why this video is not about making perfect decisions, because honestly nobody can do that all the time. This is more about understanding why smart people still make choices they regret later, why emotion quietly distort clarity without us realizing it, and how some people avoid destroying their peace not because they are luckier or smarter, but because they notice certain patterns early. And once you start noticing those patterns too, your decision becomes changing naturally, not through motivation, not through overthinking, but through awareness that most people never build. One of the biggest reasons people regret decisions later is because they confuse intensity with truth. Something feels strong emotionally, so the brain assumes it must also be right. That's why people trust excitement too quickly, trust attachment too quickly, trust temporary feelings too quickly. If something gives emotional relief, validation, attention, or comfort, the brain starts protecting it immediately, even before fully understanding it. And once your brain starts protecting something emotionally, logic slowly becomes weaker, not gone completely, just quieter. You can actually see this happen in daily life all the time. Someone ignores obvious signs in a relationship because they don't want to lose the feeling attached to it. Someone keeps dealing an important task because avoiding it gives temporary relief. Someone keeps making bad financial decisions because buying things makes them feel better in the moment. And what's interesting is that most people already know deep down that something is wrong. The problem is not lack of intelligence. The problem is emotional fog. When emotions become too loud, clarity becomes too soft. And social media has made this even worse because now people are constantly trained to react emotionally first and think later. Everything is designed to trigger instant reactions, quick opinions, quick validation, quick anger, quick attachment. Nobody pause anymore. People just feel something and immediately treat that feeling like truth. But feelings are not always accurate. Sometimes they are just temporary reaction created by fear, loneliness, ego, insecurity, excitement, or pressure. This is why some people repeatedly make the same mistake even after suffering from it before, because they think experience automatically creates wisdom. It doesn't. Experience only teaches you something if you actually reflect on it honestly. Otherwise, people just repeat the same emotional pattern with different phases, different situation, and different excuses. And if you look carefully, regret usually comes from one of these things. Either you ignored something you already knew, or you rushed because of emotion, or you kept avoiding a decision until the situation became worse. Most regrets are not caused by lack of options. They are caused by lack of clarity during emotional movement. Now here's something most people don't notice. Your brain behaves very differently when you are emotionally attached to an outcome. The moment you strongly want something to work, your mind stops observing properly and start negotiating with reality. You stop asking, is this actually right? And start asking, how can I make this feel right? And the small shift changes everything. This is why people ignore obvious red flags, because emotionally attached brains don't look for truth. They look for reassurance. They collect only the information that supports what they already want to believe. And once that happens, decision makings become biased without the person realizing it. For example, someone clearly disrespects your boundaries repeatedly, but because you're emotionally attached, your brain starts creating explanation for them instead of seeing the pattern directly. Maybe they are stressed, maybe they didn't mean it, maybe I'm overthinking. Slowly the brain becomes a lawyer defending the decision instead of a judge observing it clearly. And honestly, this doesn't only happen in relationship. It happens in career, friendship, habits, goals, almost everything. People stay attached to things that are clearly damaging their peace simply because letting go feels emotionally uncomfortable. And the brain hates emotional discomfort. It would rather stay in familiar pain than face uncertain change. That's why one of the smartest smartest things you can learn is how to separate temporary emotions from long-term consequences. Because emotions are loud in present, but consequences are quiet until later. And most people only listen to what scream now, not what slowly destroys later. There's also another strange thing about decision making. People think overthinking means they care deeply, but most overthinking is not deep thinking at all. It's emotionally looping. Real thinking creates clarity. Overthinking creates exhaustion. Real thinking simplifies, overthinking complicates. And the easiest way to notice the difference is this: after real thinking, your mind feels calmer. After overthinking, your mind feels heavier. A lot of people stay stuck because they think more thinking will magically create certainty. But life rarely gives complete certainty before decisions. Sometimes clarity comes after movement, not before it. And this is where many people destroy opportunities because they wait for perfect assurance that never arrives. At the same time, rushing blindly is also dangerous. So now the question becomes, actually make decisions without constantly regretting them later. And the answer is not becoming emotionless. That's impossible. The real answer is learning how to notice when emotions are controlling your thinking. Because once you notice that in real time, your decisions automatically improve. One simple pattern changes everything. Before making an important decision, stop asking only what do I want right now and start asking what will this decision slowly turn me into. That question immediately shifts your brain from short-term emotion to long-term consequences. Because many bad decisions feel good in the beginning but damage you slowly. And many good decisions feel uncomfortable in the beginning but protect your peace later. The problem is most people judge decisions by immediate feeling instead of long-term effect. For example, avoiding difficult conversation feels easier now but creates bigger problems later. Staying in unhealthy environment feels safer now but slowly damages your confidence. Delaying important work feels relaxing now but creates anxiety later. Your brain naturally focuses on immediate emotional comfort, but mature decision making begins when you start respecting future consequences more than present feelings. Another thing that helps massively is learning to pause before emotional decision. Not forever, not overthinking, just pausing long enough for emotion to settle slightly. Because strong emotional create temporary blindness and people often mistake emotional intensity for certainty. You will notice this especially when angry, lonely, insecure, excited, desperate. In those moments, your brain becomes extremely convincing. Suddenly, every thought feels true, every impulse feels justified, every reaction feels necessary. But emotional state distort perspective. That's why decision made in emotional extremes often becomes regrets later. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is simply not react immediately. And honestly, a lot of peace in life comes from decision you didn't make emotionally. Now here's another important shift. Stop asking what's the perfect decision. Most of the time, there isn't one. Life is rarely that clean. Instead, ask which decision creates the least long-term chaos. Because many people keep chasing temporary happiness while ignoring future consequences completely. Good decision making is less about creating perfect outcomes and more about reducing unnecessary suffering. That's much more realistic way to think. And strangely, people who regret less are usually not people with perfect lives. They are people who are honest with themselves earlier. They don't keep forcing themselves to ignore reality for emotional comfort. They notice patterns sooner. They accept uncomfortable truths sooner. They stop romanticizing things that are clearly harming them. That's honesty saved them years. There's also something powerful about learning to trust quiet clarity over emotional excitement. Most good decision actually feels boring in the beginning. They don't create dramatic emotions. They feel stable, calm, slightly uncomfortable maybe, but peaceful underneath. Bad decisions often feel more exciting because chaos itself creates stimulation. And many people are so used to emotional chaos that peace starts feeling unfamiliar. That's why emotional maturity changes decision making completely. You stop chasing intensity and start respecting stability. You stop asking, does this excite me? And start asking, does this make my life clearer or more complicated? Because if something constantly creates confusion, anxiety, emotional instability, or mental chaos, your brain already knows the answer. It's just scared to accept it fully. And this is probably the hardest truth in this entire topic. Deep down, most people already know which decisions are damaging them. They just keep hoping reality will change before they have to act on it. But delayed honesty creates delayed pain. And eventually, reality always collects its price. Thank you for being here. At last, the good news is that clarity is not some special talent talent only a few people have. It's mostly a habit of observation. The more honestly you observe your emotion, patterns, reaction, and consequences, the clearer your decision becomes naturally. Not instantly, not perfectly, but consistently. You stop being controlled by temporary feelings so easily. You stop getting manipulated by emotional impulses. You stop forcing things that clearly disturb your peace, and slowly your decision begin protecting your future instead of only satisfying your present mood. Because the people who regret less are not always smarter. They are just more honest earlier, and that quiet honesty changes everything.